Hi guys, welcome back to True Crime Time ASMR. I'm Nicole. Thank you so much to everyone who has tuned in to this channel. I truly appreciate you. And if you're new here business manager at Électricité de France, the same company where her husband Dominique had also worked. Now, Dominique Pelicot was in the habit of spending more money than he actually had, and he wound up borrowing 75,000 euros from his brother because he was in debt, and he has never paid back his brother. He owned an electrical research company which went bankrupt in 2001. So he and his wife Giselle decided to divorce, just, on paper, at that time, to protect their personal assets from the bankruptcy. And they went ahead and remarried in 2007. In the year 2010, Dominique was arrested after he was caught upskirting female customers at a supermarket in Seine-et-Marne. So if you don't know what upskirting is, which you probably do, but it's when you take your camera, usually on your phone, and hold it like under somebody's skirt so that it will just take video or pictures of the person's undergarments, basically. So that's what he was caught doing. And he was fined 100 euros. That doesn't sound like much of a fine. But his wife was never informed. She never knew about that. So the next year, in 2011, Giselle started having a lot of serious health problems. Her hair started falling out. She started losing a lot of weight. She lost almost 35 pounds. She started experiencing memory loss, and her friends and family were seriously concerned. They all thought that she might have Alzheimer's. So in 2013, she and her husband retired and moved to Mazan, Vaucluse, which is a small town northeast of Avignon in southeastern France. They rented a nice home there, and their 3 adult children, and 7 grandchildren would regularly visit them there from where they all lived in Paris. They would visit for the holidays. But even after they moved, Giselle continued to have health problems. In fact, her memory loss and fatigue got worse. One day she woke up with a haircut. She had no idea how she got it. Like, she didn't remember ever getting a haircut. So she went to the hairdresser, who told her, "You had a haircut yesterday." Now, I'm not sure if the hairdresser meant that they gave her a haircut the day before and she doesn't remember, or they're saying you got a haircut somewhere yesterday. I don't know which it is. But anyway, she also complained of pain in her cervix, and she would repeatedly go to doctors with all her complaints. And every time her husband Dominique would go with her, and he would tell the doctors that her symptoms were because she was overworking herself when she would help take care of their grandchildren in Paris. So doctors never really came out with anything specific to explain what was happening. But anyway, Dominique was arrested a second time on September 12th of 2020. So he was arrested in 2010 for upskirting, and now again in 2020. Same usually do this sort of thing, but he had urges because his wife was out of town for the past month. So, he was released on bail pending investigation of his 2 mobile phones, his laptop, and other digital equipment that they had seized from his home. Now, the investigators did not realize that they had just stumbled across a heinous crime. So they found that Dominique Pelicot was part of a private chat room called, well, in French it was called Son Insu, which means without her knowledge. So in this chat room, members discussed performing sexual acts on their partners without consent. After drugging them, that's what they talked about in this chat room. The website was connected to more than 23,000 French criminal cases, and it was shut down in June of 2024. So luckily they were able to use this chat room to arrest and charge people. So in the chats, Dominique invited other men to rape his wife and watch videos of the rapes afterwards. Now, I'm going to use that word R-A-P-E quite a bit, so I'm going to just call it R from here on in, okay? R. Skype messages were also found in which he bragged about what he had been doing. Investigators found a USB drive belonging to Dominique, and there was a folder on this drive called, in French, ABUS, which is translated to abuse in English. And this folder contained more than 20,000 images and videos of the R's of his wife. Giselle was unconscious in all of them. And Dominique had labeled everything very carefully, so it was easy for the investigators to know who was in the videos and when it happened. So the titles gave the dates, the names of the perpetrators, and what exactly they were doing, like the exact act that was occurring. So there wasn't any guesswork. Now, believe it or not, the investigators were able to identify 92 separate R's committed against Giselle by 72 different men between 2011 and 2020. It took the police 2 years to identify and locate most of these men. That was quite a job. Luckily, they had everyone's name. They didn't just have to look at the pictures, you know. But only 50 of the men were identified. Photographs were also found of Dominique Pelicot's 2 daughters-in-law in the shower, which had been taken without their consent, and he had shared the photos online. 2 photos were found of his daughter when she was around 30. She was on a bed, listless as if she had been drugged, and she was dressed in her mother's underwear. But he never admitted to doing anything to her. In November of 2020, Dominique and Giselle were called down to the police station for an interview. At this point, she knows nothing. Okay? She might have known about the upskirting, but she doesn't know any of the rest of it at this point. So the police questioned Giselle about her sex life with Dominique, and she told them that she had never engaged in drugging, and various other offenses. He was also accused of violating the privacy of his wife, daughter, and 2 daughters-in-law by illegally recording and distributing photos of them. He admitted his guilt. He admitted that he did these things. And he also said that he did get satisfaction from watching other men are his wife. According to Dominique Pelicot, he explained how the R's got started. He said that his wife had been prescribed lorazepam, which is what we know as Ativan. That's an anti-anxiety medication. So he realized that it made her extremely drowsy. So he got to thinking, let me add some extra to her food and drinks. Enough to make her lose consciousness so that he could commit certain sexual acts that she would not have agreed to doing. You know, things that were not your basic vanilla type things. I'll leave it at that. Now, on some occasions, he would use Viagra himself while he committed the R, and he would film it and share it online. Then he began inviting strangers from the internet to come to his house and watch what he did to his wife. And then he started inviting the men to do it themselves while he watched and filmed it. So as he ran out of medication to use, he started going to doctors to get it for himself. And then he would give that medication to his wife. So he had a system. He had this all figured out. When he invited the men over to R, his wife, he told them to park down the street because he didn't want the neighbors to constantly see strange men going into the house in the middle of the night. So park down the street. Sometimes they had to wait for up to an hour so that the medication could completely take effect. They would be asked not to wear any cologne or to smoke beforehand because he was afraid that a strong scent might wake her. Plus, he didn't want her to smell the cologne or smoke on her afterwards, the next morning. He would ask the men to undress in the kitchen because that way there'd be no chance they would accidentally leave any of their belongings behind. So they would come into the kitchen, undress, and then head to the bedroom. He told them they had to warm their hands either on the radiator or with hot water so that their cold hands wouldn't wake Giselle. And for some reason, he did not allow them to use condoms. No condoms. How crazy is that? I think she was past childbearing age, but I mean diseases, So anyway, one of the men was HIV positive, and he R'd her 6 different times without a condom. Luckily, she never caught it. She also never caught hepatitis, but there were occasions when she caught STIs. In fact, she caught 4 STIs. really hard to say because he's talking about something that happened when he was 9. You know, maybe it never happened, but I'm just thinking, well, maybe it wasn't actually a nurse and he just thought it was a nurse. You know, it could have been, you know, a cleaner there or, you know, any number of people. So, I don't know. I don't rule it out. Just my 2 cents. So, Dominique also said that he had witnessed a lot of violence from his father to his mother, that, you know, his father had been violent to his mother when he was a kid. But his brother once again chimed in and said it's not really true. He said they did argue a lot, but he only saw his father slap his mother 2 times. He never saw anything else. Once again, I don't know if that rules it out. Maybe Dominique saw different things than his brother saw, or maybe not. And then Dominique also had complained that his education had been restricted because his parents had used all their money for his brother's medical school education. But his brother said that that is a lie because he actually got a scholarship. It wasn't his parents' money. Okay, so that one, I believe his brother. Not that I'm the judge, I'm just adding my 2 cents, okay? Anyway, psychiatric experts evaluated Dominique and they stated that he has paraphilic tendencies, that is, an intense attraction to inanimate objects or non-consenting partners. And Dominique was described as a man who is consumed by, quote, obsessive fantasies, end quote, similar to necrophilia, and that he has, quote, a total lack of empathy, end quote. We could have guessed that. Now, in addition to what he did to his wife, there's more. He is accused of training another man named Jean-Pierre Maréchal to do the same thing to his wife that Dominique was doing to Giselle. So between 2015 and 2020, Dominique would regularly visit this man's home to help him to commit the crime. And he and this man are both being accused of R-ing this guy's wife 10 times. So in June of 2023, 51 men were indicted for R in this case. A 52nd man died of cancer before he was arrested. The men ranged in age from 25 to 72, and they came from all different walks of life. There was a firefighter, an IT expert, a journalist, a nurse, a plumber, a prison guard, and a truck driver, to name a few. Many had partners and children. Most were being charged with just 1 count of R, but one of them was charged with 6 counts. 5 of these men are also charged with possessing images of child SA. 18 of the men who have been accused are currently detained. 16 of them in respect to this case, and 2, they're already in prison for something else. Go figure. 33 of them are walking free right now, but they are under judicial supervision, and they each face up to 20 years if found guilty. Some of them have admitted that they are guilty, while others said that it was consensual, that Giselle was pretending to be asleep, or that's what they thought. And some claim that they had permission from Dominique, and that should be sufficient. So there is one trial for everybody. Okay? Huge trial. That's why it's taking so long. So at the trial there is Dominique Pelicot. There is the guy that he was teaching, Jean-Pierre Maréchal, and 49 other defendants. At the Judicial Court in Avignon, it began on September 2nd of this year and is expected to last until December 20th. Now, this trial was supposed to be held in private, but Giselle requested that it be held in public so that everyone should know what these men did and what she experienced. At one point at the beginning of the trial, Dominique was hospitalized with a kidney infection and kidney stones, but he returned to court and he did admit all the charges against him. Giselle testified at the trial and she said the following, quote, "We've been together for 50 years. As far as I'm concerned, I've been happy and fulfilled. We had 3 children and 7 grandchildren. You were a caring father. You were a kind man whom I trusted. Our friends liked him. We spent holidays, birthdays, and Christmases together. All that for me was happiness. After 4 years of preparing for this trial, I still can't understand why. How could this man, who in my eyes was the perfect man, do this?" End quote. She talked about how she had had an extramarital affair that lasted for 3 years. And when she finally confessed it to Dominique, he was extremely hurt. And she wondered if he was taking revenge on her because of that. But he would later respond to this and he said no, he didn't do this out of vengeance. He did not tell us why he did do it though. The trial is still ongoing, but so far he has not given a motive. Now there are 2 other crimes that he has been linked to since they started researching for this case. So, the first one occurred in December of 1991 in Paris. A 23-year-old real estate agent named Sophie Narm was found dead, naked, and face down on the carpet of an apartment that she was supposed to be showing to a client. She had been AR'd and then strangled to death with a belt. The case remained cold for 30 years until similarities were noticed with the case of Dominique Pelicot. And on October 14th of 2022, he was charged with the crime, but he denies it. Now there's another crime. On May 11th, 1999, a man attempted to R a 19-year-old real estate agent who they're calling Estella B. She was showing him an apartment in the suburbs of Paris. When he attempted to R her, she did manage to escape. And after he was arrested in 2010, the first time when he did the upskirting, not the second time, but the first time, his DNA was found to match DNA that was found on Estella's shoe on the date of the crime. So they matched him to that crime in 2010. But the police never followed it through. They never went and found him or anything. For some reason, they just She is such an amazing woman to have decided that she wants this case to be publicized. One of the things that I heard her say was that she has nothing to be ashamed of, and she is 100% right about that. Why should she be ashamed? It was not her fault at all. So what can I say about Dominique Pelicot? What a horrible human being. Now, for those people who are waiting for him to come up with a motive why he did this, it's not going to happen. I mean, there is no meaningful motive that he's ever going to be able to share with us, other than the fact that he had this horrific fetish